Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Battletech. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be running you down, telling you how to grok the Ti Ts'ang. Now, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, but there's not a pronunciation guide that I could find anywhere online. So I'm going to go with Ti Ts'ang, but feel free to correct me if my pronunciation is wrong in the comments down below. So before I get started, I want to give a big thank you to Matthew Kelly, one of my regular viewers, who requested that I cover this mech in an episode of Grokking Battletech. So Matthew Kelly, this episode is for you. And before I get too deep into this, I do want to say I got a ton of links in the description down below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store where you can get yourself some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. Link in the description below. And if you're in a position to and would like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon. All right, so the Ti Ts'ang is a mech specifically designed and manufactured within the Captain Confederation. This is a mech that definitely has a Chinese flavoring to it. This is a mech with a hatchet and is made to go up close and personal. But of course, through salvage and whatnot, this mech could show up in other forces throughout the inner sphere. So this is made to be a heavy mech that can move as fast as a light mech and then hit like a ton of bricks in melee. So we're going to discuss this. I'm going to tell you how well it achieves this goal. We're going to go over 4 of the major variants and briefly touch on some of the other variants that were from some special products that I don't own, but from looking at Sarna, I can see what kind of capabilities they have. We're going to discuss all of those. I'm going to go over a custom variant that I would make of the Ti Ts'ang, and we're going to go over a recommended mech warrior and a lance for my favorite version of the Ti Ts'ang. So the first version of the Ti Ts'ang is actually my favorite version. This very rarely happens. Usually the basic version of a mech is fairly, generic, a fairly standard kind of take all comers and very rarely my favorite. But in this case, the first version is the one that most purely does what the designers set out to do. So this is the Ti Ts'ang TSG-9H. That is Tango Sierra Golf 9 Hotel. Now, this mech is exactly as advertised on the tin. It is super fast while being big, heavy, with a lot of armor, and hits like a ton of bricks in melee. So let's start with one of its best attributes, its speed. So the thing is, it has 6 walking, 9 running, 6 jumping. So 6 jumping on a 60-ton mech is insane. That is really, really good. But then they gave it triple strength armor, which ups the walking and running speeds to 7, 11 respectively. That kind of speed on a heavy mech, basically the ability to go about 10 hexes on a heavy mech, is insane. That is insanely fast for a 60-ton mech. Now, for its armor, which is the other thing that I think is really great about the Ti Ts'ang, it has 9 armor on the head, 30 on the center torso, 22 on each side torso, 20 on the arms, 28 on the legs, and then on the rear torso sections, we have 9 on the center rear torso and 6 on each side rear torso. This thing has almost, not quite, but almost maximum armor. They did a lot of tricks to save weight in here. They have an extra light engine, they have endo steel. All these things bring the weight down so that you can get a very fast, large engined mech with a crazy amount of armor. And the combination of all the extra difficulty to hit this thing when it's moving so quickly, along with, if you do hit it, all the armor, really offsets the extra vulnerability of having an extra light engine. I mean, of course, if it loses a right or left torso, this mech is done for, that's it. But you have to first connect, and even if you do connect, you gotta get through 30 armor on the center torso or 22 armor on the side torsos to get to the internal structure, which is a lot of armor. This thing can be really hard to hit as long as you keep moving. You should never stop moving with this mech. And even if you do hit it, it can take a few hits, which is pretty awesome. In addition, it has 13 double heat sinks, which is a lot of heat sinking capacity, but it is small enough that you don't even have to turn any off to allow it to overheat thanks to its large energy weapon loadout. So the thing comes with a tag, target acquisition gear, so you can use it while it's running up close and personal with enemies to spot for semi-guided missiles if you're playing normal rules, or if you're playing advanced rules, could spot for artillery, which is really awesome because it's going to want to get up close and personal anyway. And then for energy weapons, to heat it up, to get that triple strength mimer going, because remember, you want to get to that 9 heat, you have 5 ER medium lasers and 4 ER small lasers. Now, this is a lot of energy weapons. They will never run out of ammo because they don't have ammo, so that's really good. Also, they cause a lot of heat, which you want this mech to actually heat up to get that triple strength mimer going. And then its main weapon, of course, is the hatchet. Now, the thing is, on a 60-ton mech, a hatchet does 12 damage, but you add in the triple strength mimer, and it does 24 damage. Even without heating up with the triple strength mimer, this hatchet was already a head capping weapon, which is really awesome. But add in the triple strength mimer, and 24 damage is insane. This hatchet does more damage than an autocannon 20, and can be really brutal if you jump in behind an enemy mech or run in behind an enemy mech before hitting them in the back. Most large mechs, and even a good number of assault mechs, you hit them in one of the rear armors, that's going to get through into the internal structure. 24 is a crazy amount of damage. And then next turn, if you were able to, run around and get back in the same mech's rear arc, you can hit him with all those medium lasers and light lasers to find the hole that you made last round. This is a really, really well-designed mech. I've never actually played it or played against it, and yet after doing the research, this basic version is one I would love to field. It is absolutely awesome. It is super cool. Now, the variants, in my opinion, all are a little watered down. They're not quite as good as the basic version. So the next one is the TSG-9C. Now, this version drops down to only 10 double heat sinks. The armor stays basically the same, 30 in the center torso, 9 in the head, 22 on the side torsos, 20 in the arms, 28 on the legs, and on the rear torso sections we have 9 and 6 respectively. It's got the 696 movement again with triple strength mimer, so again the 711. We maintain the hatchet because, I mean, that's the point of taking this. But this version, this is a Jihad era version, changes up the firepower a lot. So it's got a plasma rifle, which I respect. I like plasma rifles. It's a cool way to try to cause a little bit of a heat spike on your enemies. And then it has 2 ER medium lasers and 2 ER small lasers. And the problem is you really do give up a lot of that, scattered fire to get the plasma rifle on here, and it's the only weapon that causes a heat spike. So I did feel the one plasma rifle was a little underwhelming. The problem is you really can't fit a second one on here. So this is a little bit of an issue. I'm not a huge fan of this one, even though I love plasma rifles. Now, the third version I'm going to talk about is another clan invasion time period version, just like the original. This is the TSG-9J. Now, this version, again, has 12 double heat sinks. The armor is essentially exactly the same as the other versions. We again have the 696 and the 711 for the movement because we maintain that endo steel chassis and the triple strength mimer and the extra light fusion engine. All of that's pretty much the same. We still have the hatchet because, again, that's the reason to take this. Now, this one has reduced a lot of the energy loadout, though, to get in an ER large laser. So it's got the ER large laser, then it has 3 ER medium lasers and 2 ER small lasers. In my personal opinion, this is a downgrade. The ER large laser will do, 8 damage, and that's more damage in one place, but it's really not that great, and it doesn't, in my opinion, the ER large laser does not do the job that the Ti Ts'ang was designed to do better than a bunch of ER medium lasers and ER small lasers does. I would much prefer the basic version. Now, the last version I'm going to go into great detail on is a version from the Dark Age that uses advanced tech. So that is the Ti Ts'ang TSG-10L. Now, the TSG-10L gets the tag back of the original version. It adds in chaff pods. It has 4 medium lasers. It has the hatchet. It has a medium VSP laser, which is really cool because it does more damage the closer you get to it. And it has 4 small lasers. Now, this thing is loaded up with tons and tons, and I do mean tons, of advanced technology. It's got endo composite. It's got a double XL fusion engine, which makes it even more vulnerable to torso hits. but it only has 10 double heat sinks, and in my opinion is too vulnerable to overheating, even though I really like the weapons loadout on this version. It overheats way too easily. It could use a few more heat sinks, in my opinion. Now, there are a couple other versions of the Ti Ts'ang that are not in the standard record sheets. So the first one I want to talk about is the TSG-9DDC, or Delta Delta Charlie. Now, this version is one that was developed using a lot of experimental systems. It has a small cockpit, it has a supercharger to up its speed, it uses a lance instead of a hatchet, which is pretty cool, and it's got small X pulse lasers and a targeting computer. This is a very interesting version. This is definitely a mech that you would use a lot of experimental technology on, because they're already using cutting edge advanced tech, and that is really cool. But generally speaking, a lot of the stuff they put in here, like the small cockpit, are not things I'm a huge fan of. I actually still would prefer just the base old 9J. Now, there are two custom versions. There is the Ti Ts'ang Jason, which is a custom version of the 9H loaded up with pulse lasers. This one also has a heat issue. It can overheat way too easily. However, lots and lots of medium and small pulse lasers is awesome on this mech, since it's going to be running or jumping every turn. The extra reduction in difficulty to hit your opponent is great. I do actually really like this version. You're just going to have to cycle weapons. I mean, you want to heat up anyway because you want to get that triple strength Mech going, but then you're going to have to cycle weapons so you can cool down and not overheat too much. The last of the custom versions is the Ti Ts'ang China Doll, which is a version of the TSG-9. This one is a mech that slows down the speed but adds in a supercharger and improved jump jets. It does have the 12 double heat sinks to keep it cool, and then it's got 5 ER medium lasers, 2 ER small lasers, the hatchet, of course. This is not too bad a version, but I don't like the reducing of the base movement on it. Generally speaking, it detracts from what is the best attribute, in my opinion, for this mech. It is a heavy mech that runs like a light mech, and that is why I like this mech. So yeah, so again, my favorite version is definitely the base version, the TSG-9J. So now I decided I'm not going to do a custom version of that version, though, because that version is already perfect. It's got everything in it that I would want to do for this mech. Now, the custom version I decided to do a custom version of the 9C. Now, if you don't recall, the 9C is the one that put on the plasma rifle, because I love plasma rifles. I think they're great, and turning this into a mech that can, in addition to chopping down enemies, can also make them overheat, I think is a cool idea. It's just it needs some more heat-inducing weapons. So I tried to do a minor adjustment to that version. Hello, mech warriors and mech commanders, prospective customers. Welcome to the sales video for the Ti Ts'ang TSG-9C KIWF upgrade kit. Is your TSG-9C just not quite putting out enough heat for you? Do you like it in general, but think that maybe its heat-inflicting capabilities could be increased? Well, have I got the upgrade kit for you. Remember, don't just kill it with fire. It's still got it's got only 10 double heat sinks. It's got the standard 696 movement with the 711 because of the triple strength Mech. I kept all the armor the same. It's got the plasma rifle and the hatchet like that version does, and I maintained the 2 ER medium lasers, but I replaced the other weapons with 2 flamers. Now, this gives it just a little bit more heat-inducing capacity. The idea here is you run it at point-blank range, either in the flank or the rear of your enemy, and in addition to chopping at them, you hit them with the plasma rifle, you hit them with the 2 flamers, and you cause a heat spike. Instead of relying on all those little bits of damage to do lots of damage all over the place, you only have a little bit of extra damage here with the 2 ER medium lasers, which you can use to harass on your way in and then use to hit when you get there. But then with the 2 flamers and the plasma rifle, you can cause a heat spike, and of course the plasma rifle will do 10 points of damage in one spot as well. I actually quite like this version, but again, I still don't like it better than the 9H. The 9H is such an awesome mech. So now I'm going to give you a recommended mech warrior to use for the 9H. My recommended mech warrior to put in the 9H is Alan Silka. Now, Alan Silka is a 2-cost mech warrior. So this is a mech warrior to use when you're playing against your opponent and you've got the Ti Ts'ang in a lance and your opponent wants to do a very low-cost mech warrior thinking they can keep you from getting any incredible, powerful abilities. They agree to use the mech warriors, but they're like, yeah, let's just do a 2-cost mech warrior. This is a great one to put in the cockpit of the Ti Ts'ang in that case. Alan Silka's stats are they have 4 gunnery and 3 piloting. Now, you don't need to improve the gunnery. Now, remember, the average gunnery is 4, average piloting is 5, because you don't really have much in the way of incredibly impressive firepower on this mech. It's really big, impressive feats are in speed, armor, and the axe. So you do want to improve the piloting skill. So getting that piloting skill down to a 3 is fantastic for making sure you connect with that hatchet. And then the 2-cost ability for this mech warrior is Melee Master. Now, Melee Master allows you to attempt 1 extra punch, kick, or club attack per physical attack phase. So what you do is you run in, you hit him with the hatchet, and you kick him. The idea is to give a maximum chance of knocking down your opponent and have another way to kind of take them out of the fight. So the thing is, in the melee phase, if you hit with either the kick or the hatchet, they're going to be taking a piloting skill test to see if they can stay standing. You're going to increase the difficulty of that test by also hitting them in the legs, which also, of course, has its own modifier for trying to knock them down. Yeah, this is, I think, a really good choice for a mech warrior for the Ti Ts'ang. And in addition, it does a little bit of denial on your opponent, because unless your opponent is also taking a mech that likes to do a lot of melee, generally speaking, this is not going to allow your opponent to take stats that are going to improve, say, their chances to hit with a big mech with a lot of big guns on it. Now for the lance that we are doing, I am doing a clan invasion lance for the Ti Ts'ang. Now, this clan invasion lance has been built around the battle lance rules. So the battle stars benefit is it gives you 6 rerolls that you can use on any rolls throughout the game. The requirements of the battle star is that 50% of the lance must be of the heavyweight class or greater, and at least 3 units in this formation must possess any combination of brawler, sniper, or skirmisher rolls, which I was able to do, so I got the ability. Now, the 6 rerolls can be used on any piloting or gunnery tests. So the big things you're going to want to do is use it on the big attacks like the hatchet, or there's also a Gauss rifle in this lance, to make sure they hit their targets. And then your other mechs can fire a lot of cluster rounds and little weapons in to also try to find the holes after you've made those holes. The idea is to make a lance that really, really supports the Ti Ts'ang in its mission of coming in and chopping down some of the biggest targets on the enemy side. So again, we are using the TSG 9H in all its glory, and it has Alan Silka in the cockpit. Next, we have the mech that most likely will get your up stats from your opponent's mech warrior. And this is the Cerberus Mr5m. Now, this is not the standard Cerberus. This is not the one that everybody thinks of when you think of the Cerberus. This is not the one with the 3 Gauss rifles. This is actually a much more well-rounded Cerberus. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the one with the 3 Gauss rifles, but this one has a crazy amount of firepower. So it has 1 Gauss rifle and an ERPPC for that long-range firepower. It has an anti-missile system to help defend it from incoming volleys of missiles. And then it has 6 medium pulse lasers for when one of your enemy's speedy mechs thinks it can run in and take out your Cerberus at point-blank range. They're in for a nasty surprise when they get hit with 6 medium pulse lasers. This thing is brutal. It's also got 40 armor on the center torso, 28 on the sides, 26 on the arms, 27 on the legs, and 15 and 12 on the rear, making this an incredibly well-armored 95-ton beast of a mech. And it's got 15 double heat sinks to keep it cool while firing off all of those weapons. This is a really good big mech and would definitely be a good mech to give the improved stats to. Next, we have a medium mech to help give some cluster shots to hit the areas that the hatchet tears holes through and that the Gauss rifle tears holes through. And again, since we're doing a battle star, remember that we get 6 rerolls throughout the entirety of the game. Now, the next mech in this lance is a medium mech with some cluster weapons to find the holes made by the Cerberus and the Ti Ts'ang. And this is the Blackjack Bj2oc. Now, this one comes equipped with two LB-10X autocannons, plenty of ammo for them, and two medium lasers and a small laser. It also has a movement of 464, so you can jump around with it to get your best shots. Those cluster rounds from the LB-10X autocannons are really great at finding the holes made by the other mechs. This is a fairly affordable mech at only 1,189 battle value to help save on battle value to get a decent fourth mech in the lance. And it's fairly maneuverable, which also really helps out in support of the Ti Ts'ang, who is also incredibly maneuverable. The final mech is a second medium mech, but this is another one that is also quite maneuverable, and this is one you're going to load up with those semi-guided missiles to help to use that tag effectively on your Ti Ts'ang. So this is the Strider SR1OB. Now, the Strider comes with two LRM-10s and 2 tons of LRM ammo. And it's got a 6'9" movement with a fairly decent armor loadout for a 40-ton mech. It's got 15 armor on the center torso, 14 on the sides. So you're going to hide this behind terrain, and when enemies try to come for you, you're going to run and keep going from terrain to terrain, and you're going to fire indirectly those LRM-10s at whatever you're lighting up with your target acquisition gear, because you're going to swap out all of the missiles for semi-guided missiles with this thing. If you can even manage to run completely around the flank, maybe if you're playing in canyons with a lot of cliffs around you, and you run completely around the flank and get in the rear, you can even use the semi-guided missile to rain fire down on your enemy's rear arc. This is a really decent and affordable, at only 910 battle value, very affordable medium mech, 40-ton mech with two LRM-10s. Basically, again, really just put in here to support that tag, that target acquisition gear on the Ti Ts'ang. So again, this was my 6,000 battle value lance for the clan invasion time period. And this is how I would make a lance to support the Ti Ts'ang. I had a lot of fun with this one. I really enjoyed checking out a mech that I've never played with before and doing some theory crafting about how to use it, because this is a really interesting and really cool and specialized mech. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you have a favorite version of the Ti Ts'ang that you like better than any of the versions I talked about? Also, let me know how you would customize the Ti Ts'ang. I had a lot of problems coming up with a custom version because the basic version of the Ti Ts'ang is everything I would want in this style of mech, which is why I did a custom version of a later variant that I was not very fond of, which actually, I mean, that's kind of what you want to do when you're doing a custom version anyway. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on. Hello, mech warriors and mech commanders, prospective customers. Welcome to the sales video to the Ti Ts'ang. Shit. TSG9C. Let's do that again. TSG9C. TSG9C. Okay.